Welcome to the Sherborn Advisory Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. The time is 7:15 p.m. We will now conduct a roll call to verify a quorum. I will call each member by name. When you hear your name, please respond by saying either present in person or present remotely. Laura Howenstein.
Present in person.
Laura Lynch.
Present in person.
Adam Nee.
Present in person.
Paul Pilote.
Present in person.
George Pucci is unable to attend tonight. Divya Malloy.
Present in person.
Alex Ritchie.
Present in person.
Penn Young.
Present in person.
And I, Stephen Bonder, am present in person. The roll call indicates that 8 members are present in person. With a quorum confirmed, the meeting is called to order at 7:15 p.m. Since all members are physically present, all votes during the meeting will be conducted by voice vote. The agenda for tonight's meeting is as follows. Review and approve minutes from previous meetings. There are none for us to do that this evening. We will distribute for the next meeting the open minutes. We will discuss the 2026 annual town meeting warrant. Review current status of fiscal 2027 operating and capital budgets. Discuss proposed use of free cash and any advisory committee member reports. Are there any items to add to the agenda that were not reasonably anticipated at least 48 hours before this meeting and that require attention before our next scheduled meeting on March 11, 2026? Hearing none, I move to adopt the agenda as read. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The committee, so now we've adopted the agenda and we'll move forward. Before we jump into the agenda for this evening, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. As you may know, the advisory committee was established by the Sherborn bylaws to serve the residents of the town. One of the committee's responsibilities is to recommend the annual budget. We take this responsibility very seriously and are committed to fulfilling it. The reality is that Sherborn is nearing its Proposition 2.5 limits. We cannot ignore this, which is why every budget line item requires a careful review. We aim to provide the residents of this town with our best independent judgment. We will present our recommendations based upon the financial facts we find. Our goal is not to cut essential services, quite the opposite. Fiscal responsibility is how we protect those services for the long term. We respect all our colleagues in the budget process and welcome a discussion on how we can collaborate effectively. So now we will turn to the first item on the agenda, which is the 2026 warrant that was signed. See what date that was. February 6th of 2026. I don't know, do people have a copy of it with them electronically or physically? So one of the things that we do is each article has a write-up to it. So I wanted to see if we could assign, or if anybody wants to volunteer for any particular article to be responsible for the write-up on it. Fortunately, we don't have that many articles this year. There's only 15? No, it's more than that. There are 16. And if we don't want to go around tonight and take responsibility for any article, you can email me any that you have a particular preference for that would like to take on. So once you have a chance to take a look at it, let me know. Article 3 is already taken, so you can't have that one. It doesn't have much, but let me know what you would like. The article, which is the budget, Article 9, requires a fairly extensive write-up. So I'll assign some of those. Those are going to be based upon your liaison responsibilities, essentially. So we'll circulate those. You already know what they are. But if somebody wanted to take on, for example, the Article 16, which is the zoning bylaws, or Article 15, the storm, water, and land disturbance management bylaw, just let me know. And I appreciate any volunteers. Welcome. Any questions on that? All right, so why don't we jump over to review the current status of the fiscal 27 operating capital budget. Jeremy, over to you.
So I'm sure it was kind of late this afternoon that we were able to finally roll up the status of the budget. I believe that was also distributed to you folks by email. I can share that budget roll up and just give you a summary of where the budget currently stands.
So this one that you're showing is going to be slightly different from the one that I circulated,
Okay.
Why is that?
because Jeremy sent me another one after I'd already sent you yours. It's just maybe one or two line items that are different.
So this format of the budget model sort of divides out your revenues from your expenditures and shows if you've got a quote balanced budget and need an override, or if you have excess levy capacity left. So the top section here is your levy information. So this talks about, and it calculates your property tax levy. And you can see in the columns, this goes back to fiscal year 24 up to the current draft of FY 27. And each of these prior years are further recap. That's what we have at the close of the fiscal year. We have to submit a recap to the Commonwealth, and that's sort of the close of the year. So that's what that recap means, is that's basically where we ended up. And so for draft FY 27, there's a calculation that shows that creates your maximum allowable levy, which is that's Prop 2.5. So it's the prior year levy limit plus 2.5% increase plus new growth. That is your levy limit. Then you add in your debt exclusions and you get to your maximum allowable levy. The actual property tax levy is what you have to actually levy to fund your budget. The difference between those two is what's the excess levy capacity. So when this excess levy capacity is a positive, you can't have negative. If you have a negative there, then you need an override. The fact that it's positive in this budget model is a good thing. It is a relatively small excess levy capacity, and I'll go through what budget numbers are in here currently. But as it sits right now, with this budget, with the anticipated revenues and expenditures, there'd be an excess levy capacity of $96,000. That's down from $746,000 for the current fiscal year. So, as proposed, much of that excess levy capacity is used to fund the budget, along with 2.5% plus new growth. The second section down here is a calculation based on the property tax levy that would be needed and some assumptions of what the valuations will be for next year to develop, and it sums up what your property tax rate may be based on those assumptions. We have an assumption that your property values will go up 5% over the coming year. If that was the case, and if this budget was adopted at town meeting, the town's tax rate would be $15.75 per thousand. That's the tax rate. It's not always equal to what you end up paying in your taxes. In that rate is based on the valuation of your property as well. But assuming all property went up 5%, the tax rate would be 15.75. The next section down are other revenues. So this is state aid and local receipts. and then various other revenues that go into the high level budget. As talked about at your last meeting, this is assuming that the governor's budget sticks, and it sets forth the increase proposed for Chapter 70 school aid and unrestricted government aid. And the local receipts are set based on our current forecast. And the next section down is your expenses. So it's sort of a balance sheet of your budget. First section is all the town departments. And what has been built into this model is $168,000 for the legal counsel budget. I think the last we discussed was 160. We put in 168 is that's a better representation of the 3-year average. We also are putting forward, though we are pursuing a part-time director of assessing, that search has not gone well as of yet. So this model is budgeting for a full-time director of assessing, though we'll continue to try to find a part-time director of assessing and try to find a partner in another community that would like to share one. But worst case, we're kind of carrying that level service compared to FY26. The other budgets are as currently submitted by the budget makers, not necessarily reflective of some changes that may be requested from liaisons. I think since you've met with the police, fire, and public works directors, talked to them about their budgets, they have been able to reduce their budget requests nominally. Those reductions have been resubmitted by them and are reflected in this budget roll-up. The library, this afternoon, after meeting with liaisons, have resubmitted their budget, which is about a $6,000 reduction from what you prior saw. So that's included in this roll-up. I think that's one of the revisions that you didn't see in the model that that Stephen sent earlier, because that came in later this afternoon.
Jeremy, I was confused about the legal counsel one. You're saying that you said that was more reflecting a 3-year average, but it's going to 168 versus the 80.
That's correct. Yeah. The legal counsel budget had been level funded in Sherborn for many years at $80,000. That's not truly representative of the actual spend.
Okay.
So just to point out,
Talked about it.
yeah, just to point out the column headings that those expenditures for those previous years is what was approved at town meeting, not the actions. So that's why that may be a little confusing.
Thank you. Both.
So that gives you a sum down here of the town departments. So overall, the town departments is presented in this budget, our budget increase 5.75%. The next section of the budget are the undistributed expenses line items. That's your general property insurance, the health insurance, benefits for town employees. What we're carrying here, we did adjust since the last time you've talked about these budgets. We did adjust the debt service line to carry the short-term interest, the ban costs for if all of the projects submitted to the capital budget committee were approved. So there was a slight adjustment there, an increase in ban costs. And then the next section here is on the education, the schools. This includes the regional version 3 budget, which I believe has not yet been approved, but they had to reschedule their meeting. But in their packet, there was a budget number presented that's carried in this model, along with the current version 2 for the local schools and the current numbers for the vocational, Tri-County vocational and Norfolk Aggie. So
Can we just point out one thing here on that one? If somebody happens to be looking at those percentages, there's a change in how the out of district costs are being accounted. So perhaps the line to focus on is the total school budget as opposed to any individual line, because it's a little, there's been a change in accounting method, so as to say, so it's not apples to apples.
But overall, the school budgets increase in total a little over 5%, which makes the overall town budget have an increase for FY26 of 5.06%. That's more of a representation of what folks' tax bills may increase as a result of the Congress budget being approved. The next section down are some monetary items. So there's, appropriations to stabilization funds. There's your capital budget items that may be funded by free cash. Those are covered in this section. This budget does carry $200,000 in contributions to the OPEB stabilization fund, $100,000 from the operating budget, and $100,000 cash, as has been done in the last several years. There is a supplemental appropriation for FY26 of $300,000 for essentially for the increase in snow removal costs for the year, and $50,000 towards overages in the legal line item. And actually, one thing I didn't mention up on the revenue side, this budget also utilizes one stabilization fund. It's utilizing the special education stabilization fund, utilizing 68,000 in change, basically using the available balance to fund the budget. That would drain that stabilization fund, but as Stephen mentioned, there's a shift in the way the out of district costs for special education are being treated by the school budgets, but there's also a significant increase proposed. So part of that increase could be funded from the stabilization. This offsets the amount from the property tax. Let's see what else to point out. This has the general contributions, the general stabilization from free cash of $50,000. It has a contribution of $400,000 to the capital stabilization fund, $300,000 from overlay release that will happen in July 1st, and $100,000 that could be appropriated from an account that has $100,000 from the LEED certification that the library project received. It's sitting in that account waiting to be utilized. If you moved it to the capital stabilization fund, then it would be available in future years to offset your capital costs. So all of that being said, you have enough property tax levy to cover this budget. So there's no deficit or surplus. And you would be left with $96,000 in excess levy capacity for use in FY28.
One thing, I just, some people are still in the waiting room, and like, for example, Sean Colleen is using a link, so I just want to make sure we're set with the public having access. I just don't know. I've tried to send him a link.
Those are different. I emailed Sean the PDF with the link to.
Are we in, other people are on here. So I'm just trying to think what's the best way to move forward. Was that the link that people are using? Because we have all the other people, a lot of people from the public here.
Can you put a chat in there with the new link number?
That's not going to make good.
How do you know that people are trying to get
Sean Colleen was trying to get in, and he had to use the link. Right, I was trying to send him the link that I'm on here, but it didn't work. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure we don't have. an issue. Because people that are on the call used the link, I'm assuming, from,
Yeah. If folks are able to get in.
right. Thank you, Tom is saying the link is in the posted agenda. So Tom, thank you, Tom. So I don't know what link Sean was trying to use.
Meeting that's gonna get out to the folks that are not.
I understand that. I just want to make sure we're
But
good.
if you can see them, can you send them a chat message?
I did. I sent him a message. He needed me to email him, so no, I can't see them here.
Oh, I thought you said that
You're
you.
on.
No, he's texting me. Okay, thank
Okay, I
you.
thought you said you saw them.
No, he texted me.
Okay, very good.
I mean, if people are reaching out to you, you could send them.
That's
a link.
what I'm trying to do, but it didn't work. Anyway, I just want to make sure we're,
I think you can carry on.
okay, thank you.
Questions for Jeremy? Yes.
I think you said there was $200,000 into OPEB, but I could only find $100,000 when I looked at it.
Yeah, there's two different places that'll show up. One area would be in the operating budget. In the undistributed expenses, OPEB appropriation.
Oh, I see, okay.
$100,000. And then in the other monetary articles, another $100,000 from free cash. So one is from the tax levy and one is from free cash.
Great, thank you.
Is that cemetery perpetual care? Is that what was proposed at the last meeting? Head of,
No. Sort of.
Are you talking on the revenue
On
side?
the revenue side, yeah. So this would be the first year that the cemeteries are proposing to contribute to the operating budget from some of their available funds from through their trust funds, essentially perpetual care. It's not related to that was discussed that may have some flaws to it. This is a budgetary contribution, which is great. This is a good thing. And it'd be the first time that they're contributing from their perpetual care funds to the operating budget. But that warrant article, the wording is a little off from what they're trying to separation.
Jeremy, following up on Stephen's kind of clarification about these headers. So these are the town meeting approved budgets for prior years.
Correct.
Like as far as just overall actuals go for those years, I know these percentages that we're seeing here are based on, what was proposed. Are they typically in line? Are they typically over? Or is there no rhyme or reason year over year?
Typically they're under. If the overall budget was over, then you have to hold a special town meeting to fund it. So
And so by like how much typically?
overall budget has been under the town meeting appropriation, and any overages in the departments have either been balanced by a reserve fund transfer or a year-end transfer.
And how much under just is it probably varies year to year, but typically,
It's relatively small, so whatever is under will roll to free cash
and then, yeah,
and be available to the town to fund capital in the next year.
yeah.
Typically, the quote turnbacks have been 1% or less. Deb, is that about right as far as percentage?
Oh, yep, there, yeah. Anywhere between 1% and 2%. It was a little bit higher right after the pandemic, but last year was about, I don't know, $350,000 of turnbacks.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions for Jeremy?
These expenditure numbers, are they already discussed with each of the departments and this is what has been agreed on?
So what's shown, yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
There are some numbers that are still in discussions with various departments, but
Okay. So we can still,
in this roll up are based on what was submitted by the budget makers.
Okay.
Adjustments made by other folks.
Yeah, let's be clear on that. This current budget is based upon what people submitted.
Right.
And they may have been revised by those people as well. So there aren't any adjustments in here that we're asking any department to make.
Perfect, thank you.
But we're not even asking any departments to make adjustments. We're asking them to consider what they could do to help close the budget gap as we knew it at the time of those conversations. So there's been no specified requests to make changes. We merely asked if they would consider if they could sharpen their pencil. Based upon the facts that we had at the moment. As an example, we didn't have V3 of the school budget at the time. And that usually is a very nominal change between 2 and 3. It was about 50,000, I think.
Change.
Yes, rather than do that downward adjustment.
So in terms of any further, let's just say departments did find ways to help additionally, at what point, sort of up until what point can they sort of submit that? Up until we have our public hearing or after that, up until town meeting, or how does that process work?
Would probably be desirable that those be submitted prior to your public hearing, so that then you could vote on those budgets and have all those votes sort of incorporated into the advisory report.
This is based on the numbers that you presented to the select board on Thursday of last week. And,
It's
you know, the PowerPoint that you had.
But some of the budget possibilities are not included in this role. This is, as Stevens mentioned, this is what the actual controllers submitted or revised and resubmitted.
So they could always advise them back based on the fact.
There's a handful of department budgets that I know you folks have active conversations with the budget makers on.
Basically, by next week, we will have our numbers all in hand.
Right.
Okay, let me put it this way. Before the public hearing, we will have the actuals all in hand, and this is what it stands as. That's
Do we anticipate any department might submit something increased?
Hard to
Hopefully
know.
not.
People,
Always possible. It's hard to know.
Hopefully
I
not.
just wondered if anybody had any tell on that. Okay.
I mean, in my summary, I mentioned a couple of increases proposed by myself as far as this legal budget and the assessor budget. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any that would be coming back towards you as a revision upwards.
How does capital, I understand the school, for the high school, I did a tour actually of the roof. And I believe that's gonna be back on Friday.
So why don't we,
So does that affect anything?
yes, why don't we, if we could, if we're through this draft, we can jump over to free cash and capital.
Okay, I just thought,
So we
okay,
can-
thank you.
So we can wrap it all in one picture together. Want to do free cash next?
Sure.
So a number of these things for free cash tie into that budget model. So it might be a little repetitive. It's sort of in a different format. This is sort of summarizes the overall uses of free cash that you should consider. So free cash, it's not free and it's not cash, but that's what they call it. It's an aggregation of various things, but it's available for any legal use. Generally, free cash is used for capital projects, and it's a form of stabilization. So your fiscal policy is what we suggested it should be within a certain range. You need to keep enough of it to help. liquidity and just to be available if there was a downturn. It's certified every year by what we submit to the state. It's currently certified at $3.1 million is the current certification of free cash. As I mentioned, the Board of Assessors has voted for at least some overlay. Overlay is what funds that the Board of Assessors withhold to cover any abatements that they may have and may have to pay out. There had been a reserve built up in overlay based on some personal property taxes in a dispute with the public utility companies or the private utility companies about how they were being assessed those taxes, but that's made its way through the system and we don't need the reserve anymore. So the Board of Assessors has released that. So that $300,000 will fall to free cash. There's also $100,000 that was received because the library project received a certification that was certified as a green building, and there was an incentive towards that the town received. Those funds are just sitting in an account right now. They need to be appropriated out to be used for some other purpose. So recommended usage of free cash in those two overlay and the lead certification funds would be $50,000, I'm sorry, towards general stabilization, $100,000 towards the OPEB trust, $300,000 stabilization from the overlay, $100,000 to capital stabilization for the lead certification. Funding the supplemental from snow and ice of currently that's an estimate. It's a good estimate based on the last storm that could get revised in the next week or two if we have another snowfall. But that's standing at $300,000 from free cash to supplement that, and $50,000 from free cash to supplement in overhead legal bills. The supplemental budget funding can come from free cash, or it can be funded through tax levy. That's a decision for the town to make. Currently, in this usage, it's assumed to be from free cash.
So let's just dig into that a little bit so we can think about it, because this is an important distinction. So that supplemental budget can be funded in one of two ways that I know of. Either you use this free cash amount, or you build it into fiscal 27's levy, meaning instead of the amount that's subject to appropriation, the 3.37 million, you would add another 350 to it, and that's how you would recover those funds. So that's a decision for us to recommend.
Essentially increase your property taxes about 1%. If you funded it that way, as opposed to free money. And then the sum of capital items proposed to be funded by free cash. Police vehicle, public works vehicle. The design for town building projects, the transfer station infrastructure, the compactor and electrical system upgrades, IT, assessors CAMA, the exterior and roof project here at Town Hall. Given the supplemental amounts, seems that project should be exempt debt borrowed instead of out of the free cash. So that's why that's been zeroed out here.
And that was the 450,000.
Right. And then there's some small fire items, and recreation is proposing some sprinkler capital for Laurel Fields. So all of those uses of free cash over 1.6 million and change, leaving a balance in free cash of 1.9 million, which is a little over 5% of your operating budget, which is within policies as far as the amount you should reserve in free cash.
Can we ask questions about those? So I'm a little confused. do you mind if I go through this one time? You know where I'm going with this, okay? So in 2021, and I've kind of done some research on the town meeting, and I'm with the assumption that this all got voted. And I know this is before your time. So town buildings and facilities had 369,000 as excluded debt. And 150 went to town hall office reconfiguration and museum relocation. 80,000 for the town hall roof replacement, insulation, air sealing, trim repairs, and repainting. 35K for wash bay, oil separator, 50K for fire station kitchen flooring, and 54 for police. So that was 369. Then in 2022, there was the gate and fence for 25K and engineering service, the Maple Washington roundabout. But then also town buildings and facilities, we were here again. We had leftover from that money, from what I understand on these reports. 240 was still available from the 369 appropriation. So there was a request for 190. So there was 60 for the fire station doors, 40K for police station gutters, 50 to 70K again for the kitchen and possible air handler replacement. That was 50 to 70K, 40K for the tight tank replacement. And there was 35K for the wash boil separator and tight tank replacement in 2021. So then I see it again. And then the roof repair comes up again at 40K. So it was 80 in 2021. Now, maybe it didn't get done because, well, it didn't get done. But, you know, we didn't spend all that 369. And then, so we had the roof replacement again, then 75K for town hall space utilization. Some of the, what we're sitting on right now and whatnot. And then prisoner cell plumbing fixtures. But then we hear about it again, 65K in 2023 for roof replacement and attic insulation again. Then the 75K for the transfer station electric service again. So I know it, like it had to get, so what we heard in capital budget, well, that, for example, the 369 had to get appropriated for other things. So I'm just trying, it's just frustrating to always hear about the transfer station or the roof replacement or the tight tank and hear it again and again, especially with, so can you just help educate me or in the public too? Because when you see it here and you're at the meetings and I know, I'm sorry. And this was before you. I just am trying to understand why it's not talked about. Say, hey, everybody, we couldn't spend the 80K on the roof. Not you, I'm saying for the public.
Those, what you're citing was what was reported in the advisory report.
Mhm.
Motion made at town meeting. The motions made at town meeting allowed those funds to be used for any town building renovation or repair. After those appropriations were made, apparently, again, before my time.
Right.
Other items came up that were higher priority that those funds were spent on. So all of the funds were used for legitimate purposes to renovate and repair your town buildings. Not, fortunately, not necessarily following what the indications were in the advisory report, but following the intended purposes voted by town meeting. So it's obvious that the town roof has not been done.
Right.
And we know it's going to cost this amount based on the recent study by On-Site Insight.
But how can we let
That
the public?
study by On-Site Insight is suggesting that your operating budget for town buildings should be increased by $200,000.
Hmm.
In addition, it's suggesting that you should be spending $1.2 million on renovations to your capital buildings in this budget. It's that basically what I'm saying, that study is telling you the need is much higher than what had been appropriated and spent and what's being proposed here. So all of those funds have been used to help maintain your buildings, and the need is much greater than what was asked for and what is being asked for in this budget. And the town should take the next year to be thinking about what and how it wants to maintain its buildings. So
But you do understand the disconnect. As a taxpayer,
agreed with you several times.
no, I'm not saying you, I'm saying one, I'm just, so it's very frustrating to sit and kind of go through this, and I'm sure for Sean and going through this, when then he's given the directive, listen, even though, we got the 316 or whatever it is at that point, have to go and then redirect him to do other things that are more priority. I understand that, totally.
Right.
Oh, good, he got in the meeting. So I totally understand that. It's how do you notify the public, so to speak?
Those are great questions.
Thank you.
So I appreciate your explanation, appreciate the disconnect. It seems to me the disconnect is one of arguably what appears to be a lack of transparency in the warrant article of that year, 2022. It spells out in the booklet these line items, but the warrant as written just says the money is being appropriated for town buildings. And I think what troubles me is I think a reasonable person could read through that entire booklet, look at everything, and assume that when they vote for that appropriation, they are voting for those line items. So I think the way to end the disconnect is to figure out either is to figure out how to draft the warrant article. Either it specifies everything, or it spells out that actually what is being appropriated is a lump sum to be used as best seen in the current fiscal year for building maintenance. And I think as long as I'm not proposing one or the other, but I think it should be spelled out, because I think the lack of what seems like a lack of transparency there, I find troubling as well.
That was fine. I wasn't part of those discussions a number of years ago.
Right.
Sean was, but it was my understanding that those were the potential projects that of need during that time. And that's why maybe the vote at the motion at town meeting was general, but the need was presented in meetings in the advisory report for certain projects. But I think the lesson or takeaway for you folks might be that the motions made by advisory, you folks make the positive motions at town meeting, the way they're crafted and written matters.
That's what I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
So I just one comment, Sean, then we'll, I see your hand is raised. I can see both sides of this issue, in that the budgets are done fairly early, but stuff comes up. So you have to have some flexibility that if there's a leak, you have to fix it. If the boiler breaks, you have to repair it. Maybe the kitchen floor isn't this high priority because you have these other issues that need to be addressed. So I can see how the ambiguity can work both in the town's favor and perhaps, reading the advisory commentary is this is what we really like to do under best circumstances, but may not be possible. So I can appreciate that. Sean, you still there?
I am. Thanks for letting me in. I was in the waiting room for over 40 minutes. And I got to touch on this because Nora can't have a phone conversation with me without bringing this up. So I'd love to put this to bed. The lack of transparency is not on the part of how it was presented or how it was voted at town meeting. It's more how people are reading the advisory report for several different years. If anyone goes back to what was mostly recorded meetings at the time and how it was presented by me to the select board and to advisory, there was flexibility in those numbers because the numbers we had were already old. We knew we didn't know what the parking lot was going to cost and the site work at town hall. So it was just a rolling borrowing that went on each year. And we talked about having some of it borrowed, having some of it free cash for flexibility. But by no means did we think we had fixed numbers. I presented it as we didn't know what the numbers were because many of them needed to be designed. The kitchen didn't have a design. The roof had to go out to bid. It's public bid. So you think you know what the cost is, but it was based on old numbers. So we held the old numbers on the on-site inside report, and that was how it was presented. We knew they were not very good numbers, but it was a list of general projects. And most of the money went to projects we already had on the list. The insulation for the town hall was a project that was talked about for many years. We took a grant. We knew we were going to overspend because the grant was forcing us into doing, work, and we had to fund what was not funded by the grant. So it's really disingenuous to keep saying that there was a lack of transparency between me and Jeff Warden and others, because that's not true. Everything was presented in the same fashion it was done. When the projects got done, that you have a reconciliation of what was spent. So we need to stop going back. What we did change this year is I brought a very clean sheet that shows exactly what we're going to spend for design and what we think it's going to cost. It's still a public bid project, so we don't know what it's going to cost. But I really wish we could stop hashing out what happened in 21 and 22. We were coming out of COVID. We did not have good estimates for numbers. We had to finish the library, and we did. But we did exactly what we said we were going to do. So you really need to go back to the videos rather than what was written by people in the advisory report and by the capital budget committee, because we talked about that in meetings and we definitely disagreed with how that was going to happen. But you can't go back and rehash it now because the disagreement was then. But I promise you, if you go watch the videos of the select board meetings, which are all on YouTube, it was presented and it was all out in the open. So there was nothing nefarious going on. So I'd really like this to be the last time this is done in a public meeting or one-on-one with me.
Okay, thanks, Sean. And where are we with the transfer station? We're doing the transfer station?
Yeah, so what I have up here now is just a summary of my understanding of what are being requested for capital projects. You've got the regional school project, which that's the town of Sherborn's part of the project. I understand those bids may be coming in shortly and may come in less than that amount, but that's currently the amount proposed by the school department. The Pine Hill water supply tank, that project is out to bid currently. We might have numbers before town meeting. It's going to be really close, but that's the current engineer's estimate for the work. We've also received a grant of $100,000 towards that project. The police vehicles, the fire department work.
I'm sorry to interrupt. On the Pine Hill, is it 506 plus the 100 or 506?
Yes, currently it's 506 plus the 100. When that bid comes back, we will be able to refine that. If it comes back in time, it's going to be tight. We will get the bids after your public hearing, unfortunately, but just before town meeting. Let's see. One to point out is the town facilities and infrastructure. So what you were just currently talking about, we've walked back all of the projects that we were requesting for FY27 to include just the one that we think is the highest priority, which is town hall roof and exterior repairs. Given the value of that and the other competing needs for free cash that's currently shown on the chart here is exempt borrowing. And then we're asking for design funds such that we can get into a cycle of doing design and bidding the year before asking for construction funds. So that $125,000 funded by free cash would be for all of those design projects. All of those were identified in the most recent on-site inside report. That's a consultant that does facilities studies. Roadway management is annual appropriation towards roadway management. We also get state funds towards that. It's about 50-50 now. We'll get about $450,000 from the Commonwealth. And then the local appropriation is $450,000. a roadway management study that was done a couple of years ago indicates the annual need there is a little over 1 million per year to keep your roads in the current state of repair. So we're gaining on that.
On that road again, I'm sorry to interrupt. The gross amount, or the amount of state funding that you expect in addition,
450.
in addition to
that,
it's about 900.
900.
And is that the historical amounts we've been spending, about 900 in total?
We had an increase. So last year, the local contribution, I believe, was 350.
And the same,
Trying to increase up to the recommended spend.
which is about 1 million too, I think.
And then the other projects, related to town building infrastructure is at the recycling center, the replacement of the recycling compactors is a portion of that. And then the balance is to do some electrical repairs. There's been some fires there related to the electrical system. It needs to be upgraded, and currently the compactors are not owned by the town, they're rented. It will be replaced with town-owned equipment, new equipment, and a new power supply. And the annual request for IT replacements, and 2 capital projects from recreation, one for Jameson Field 2 renovations, borrowing of $100,000, and some irrigation sprinkler equipment to supplement the project they're doing at Laurel Fields, and the camel system replacement for the Board of Assessors.
So, as far as process goes, are we gonna get a report fairly soon from the Capital Budget Committee about what they're recommending?
Yes, we're trying to have another meeting. Let Peter know. We're meeting, today and next Wednesday. So he's traveling.
Is there a
There's nothing that I've just texted it, I just emailed him again, asking him for a schedule. Can you explain? I haven't seen irrigation sprinklers, but that's like recreation, is that
I'm not sure if
they're asking for capital?
recreation has submitted that project.
No, I haven't seen that.
Laurel Field irrigation submitted sprinklers. I'm not sure if those have been submitted. That project's been submitted to Capital Budget Committee or not. I was made aware of it today, so I've added it to your list.
I've been made aware of it right now. And Field 2, just for the public to know, that's different than the Field 4 that still hasn't been spent. Well, 95,000 is still remaining. Only 5,000 was spent for consulting, I think. So that's interesting.
So I think we're gonna need some guidance from Capital Budget Committee. I
I
guess we don't wanna
concur.
preempt their discussions.
All these things interrelate because, as shown here, 772,240 is funded by your free cash, which is summed up on that previous sheet I showed you, your free cash. So a lot of these things tie together. And that tax exempt borrowing of 0.4 million relates to your budget line for debt service, what you need to carry for your short-term interest costs. So if something different is recommended for approval at town meeting, that could change your budget line for debt service.
And why would it be a capital item if it's $12,000? Usually that's 25,000.
But non-recurring
Right,
equipment replacement project.
right, I know we made up that.
Capital.
Yeah, I do remember that this is the second rolling sprinkler thing that they were talking about. And I think it's fair. It seems like we should let capital budget talk about it. And I can
Okay.
see some options being maybe that gets paid out of the revolving fund,
Mm-hmm,
or they wait until electricity is there
right.
before spending. So unless he's going to somehow deploy it in another way, not quite sure. So then on the 125 for design work, I kind of view that kind of expense as just part of capital, meaning it's just a component of a much larger project. And I think another way to potentially fund that is through the capital stabilization, as opposed to using a free cash, because we're putting in 400 now, and that is just part of the cost of doing all those projects.
So that needs capital, the use of capital stabilization needs to be incorporated, I mean, as well. So you could replace free cash items up there and say capital stabilization is the same thing.
So who, as far as process goes, that comes from this group, select board, capital budget. Where does the funding source the fall to?
Great question. I've asked many folks that same question.
Historically,
the default, I guess, is the advisory makes the positive motion at town meeting that includes a funding source. So ultimately, you folks are proposing a motion at town meeting where you take your guidance from, I guess, is a.
so the administration doesn't make the request.
It's not the current way that Sherborn's town budget, I mean, town organization falls, no. You allow each of the budget makers to propose capital to your capital budget committee.
And that
There's no one single entity that owns the capital program nor your operating budget.
so
It's
town,
unless it's a town meeting.
so town buildings falls under the select board. So would not the select board then ask for these capital funds and suggest a funding source?
They would be in a position to know the town's finances better than most committees, yes. But technically, if you read the town bylaw, your capital budget committee is the only entity that has any mention of a townwide capital plan.
But I guess there was like two components to it. I guess what I'm seeing is one is the item itself, but the second is the funding source. Free cash.
Funding source ties into how you want to develop your operating budget. So capital and operating budgets in municipal budgeting are very interrelated.
Stephen, are you asking who wrote down that it be free cash? Is that the question you're asking?
I developed this list along with Deb, but
Okay.
this is merely for informational and a suggestion.
It's to begin the conversation. I view it as an accommodation to us to put pencil to paper and so that we can begin to discuss it. But I get
Seems to balance. There's some competing. So when you get every other year when you borrow, your debt is rated by S&P. The last time the rating happened, your AAA rating was reaffirmed. It's the best you can get. However, it was reaffirmed with caution in that you've got headwinds, and despite how you even may fund your capital or your operating budget, you have headwinds based on the small size of your community and your high expenses per capita compared to many other communities. So there's not much you can do about that, other than over time have more development and new growth. I'll say that's not going to change quickly, if at all. But they noted that any drastic reduction, either planned or unplanned, in any of your reserve funds would be a negative in your next rating. They also noted that, increased debt load, significantly increased debt load would be a negative to your rating. So here you go. You kind of balance the use of free cash and reducing your reserves or adding some debt. So it's a balance.
Is Pam still on? Is Pam, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for being available. Do you, this may not be a question you can answer right off. Do you know how much debt is being paid down during fiscal 26?
Oh,
Principal?
I don't have that with me at home.
Okay.
Updating, get it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
While Jeremy's looking that up, do you have a sense as to what the on these exempt borrowings, what the terms would be? Is roadway management a 10-year amortization? Is that historically what it's been?
Historically, yes.
Do you have a sense about the roof for the high school or the water supply tank for the Pine Hill School?
Yeah, I think I have that with me. Hold on.
Is that 20 or 30 years potentially?
The roof is 20. The water tank is 10. Town buildings is 10. Roadway management is usually 15. And that's all that I have with me.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess one of the things that I was thinking about is that in the appropriation, the debt service number is probably like around 5.6, 5.7% of the total. I think we might be with this additional number, that new revised number, we're probably pretty close to 5.7 or 5.8, maybe 5.7. So we're within the historical norm. But I just speak, if we take on another 2.4, there may be, I don't know, 500 or 1 million dropping off that's being paid during the course of fiscal 26. So the net increase is not the full amount here. There's not that net increase, not the burden to the. And another theory, I guess, also is that the amount of capital spending should be about equal about the depreciation expense as well. So you're kind of replacing what's being depreciated. And you don't want to skip a year of capital improvements because it's kind of just a lost year. You don't want to skip it. You want to just have a reasonable number. I mean, the school roof is the one that I don't know that we anticipated that fiscal 27. Was that originally proposed for a different time frame?
Yeah, that was proposed for FY 28. The school department brought it forward and pushed out some HVAC projects, which I understand those projects that were pushed out also have increased in cost. So, but the school department had previously submitted for 5-year capital plan this.
Any thoughts? It's a lot of balls up in the air at once to be thinking about. It's all interrelated.
I have a question, Sue. So the idea is that so just big picture, the excess levy capacity is the 104 with the 350 of the supplementals that you mentioned and that nuance. The idea is that that wouldn't go and that wouldn't affect that.
Correct.
So in other words, you could just tax that extra money and then have it
Correct.
available for other stuff.
So on this free cash schedule, as an example, at the end of the year, instead of it being 1,927,000, it would be 350 higher than that because you'd be
Right.
basically charging the taxpayer
It's like
in the next.
get out of, it's an ability to tax more without
Correct.
running afoul of.
Right. That's my understanding. And as Jeremy said, that's about a 1% increase.
Jeremy, what, like, with respect to our rating, like, what are like how would that, like, implications for doing, like, taxing the extra 350 rather than moving things around and borrowing more? Is there like do you have a strategic opinion on, from your perspective, what makes sense there?
As far as funding your capital proposed for FY 27?
Yeah.
Well, the capital is supplemental appropriation.
Yeah, those are,
When you're
Yeah.
mentioning the 350, you're talking about the supplemental appropriations.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, maybe I'm not thinking about this clearly, but I mean, the one way to do that would be to just what we've just discussed, right? And whether if all other things are equal, right? Whether taxing the citizens that money,
Yeah.
or use it or not, if we're going to spend the same amount, whether we.
I guess it's related to capital in a way in that that supplemental appropriation, I think I'd recommend that you use free cash and not add to your tax levy to your residents. And that makes less free cash available to fund capital.
Right.
So that's why, shifting the town building capital for the project for town hall from free cash to exempt borrowing sort of balances it both competing things there. So,
Now, I'm not advocating necessarily rolling that supplemental budget into the tax rate. But what do you view as the pros and cons?
well, I mean, it would retain more in your reserves, so you wouldn't be drawing the 350 out of your free cash in your reserves. It would be still in your reserves. To retain, more money in those accounts. But you do have a pretty sizable infusion from the overlay and the lead certification as well. It's a balance of what you feel comfortable taxing your residents as opposed to what funds you have in hand.
It's eventually the burden of the taxpayer. Because if you end up having to borrow the money, it's just,
Does it cost to your credit rating reduce? Or interest costs would go up?
Wait, can you say that part again?
So your credit rating affects what interest you'll get on the
But
market.
what would affect our credit rating in this scenario?
If the next time that you go out to the market and your credit is rated, if the headwinds that they noted last year, one of the new considerations that they thought was just a flat out negative was your population being less than 5,000. You can't change that, right? That is what it is. But it was an indication to the rating companies that you don't have as many folks upon which to spread out your expenses. And that's a negative in their ratings. And it's just the nature of a small town with, you'll want to have a good school system and in town services.
Is there a target date, do you think, for Coolidge Street properties to come online?
Online, by way of hitting the tax rolls, everything aligns, they could be submitting for building permits a year from now. Once then they don't go down in the tax rolls until they're actually built. That could take several years, 2-3 years, depending how quickly the developer wants to build them out. So that new growth is going to come online FY 29, FY 30.
Is there a guesstimate as to what the fair market values of those are going to
There
be?
is, yeah. I don't recall offhand, but there was an analysis done. Yeah. I can get that.
I'm just trying to think through what the revenue might be.
It was significant, but like it's a one-time blip, you know, once that's gone, it's gone, but
Maybe 1,500,000. So it's
How many units again? I'm just trying to think how approximately how many units are those condos?
rental units and it's home.
Right,
I actually have.
okay.
thoughts, anybody?
And I want to, it's just an idea. I was thinking that if on the warrant article booklet, we say on the cover, town meeting featuring free cash, we might increase voter turnout.
Yeah.
That's true.
Can I ask you just something that's it been brought up in the more when I was looking at these again? With the road paving, you know, I've always heard put that under operating capital. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a recurring expense.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you have roadway maintenance needs.
I've seen like 500.
Fairly significant amount. It's currently not built into your tax levy. It is by way of exempt debt. But now that you're at the levy limit,
Oh, yeah.
with this proposed budget just over, you know, just by the hair of your teeth, there's no capacity in your
Oh, I understand that. I'm
budget
just,
now to build in roadway maintenance, roadway capital into your operating budget. You could fund that through a levy and not borrow for it. There's ways to do that. You could do a one-time override to raise your levy to fund your annual contributions to the roadway maintenance or roadway reconstruction. And you wouldn't have to charge interest on that. You'd just be raising it. Some towns have done that. Medfield did that for their town buildings, not their roadway, but they raised their levy property taxes to put monies into a town building capital stabilization account, which that's what funds their town building capital needs.
yeah, that's what
They don't have to do overrides for it, or it's in their tax levy.
we're having to harass and harangue people about what happened with the roof. Okay.
So I think we would, and you can get back to me via email. Are there any departments that we'd like to have follow-up questions with? I know one of the larger budget, but one of the ones that I think bears revisiting is the rec commission. We got a revised budget back from them, so it might be worth everyone being able to see what that revision looks like and how they're using the appropriation in the end, the revolving fund. Is that something that people would like to see?
Yes, please.
And I think at that time, we can probably hear about the Jameson Field 2 and 4, get an update on that, get an update on Laurel, and could spend some time on that. I think part of the help we need at this point, unfortunately, is the capital budget committee and whether or not they can, the timing is tough. There's probably only a week left, week or 10 days before we need to have stuff for the 21st.
I understand.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
It's frustrating. But as Jeremy proposes this, we're within the town guidance of a 5% target. We're right at the 5% target. Fortunately, we have the overlay and the leads numbers coming in, otherwise we wouldn't be able to do it. But I do think it might be worth discussing, and I don't know the answer to the question about whether or not the planning, the 125 for the planning should that come out of the stabilization? Should we recommend it coming out of capital stabilization or free cash? Now, one might say it doesn't really matter, but it's a formality that we should probably consider. Because that capital stabilization is a growing amount. And we need a kind of an overall plan now that we have the on-site insight report and some targets about how over the next 5-10 years those projects are going to get funded. So it's a larger conversation. And there are many parties involved in that, I'm sure. So there's a little ambiguity here. We all have to be comfortable, I guess, with being uncomfortable. That's where we're at right now. We have a bit of a moving target. We're facing something we haven't faced before, but we certainly weren't warned about it. By way of background, for those who haven't attended the March 21st Saturday meeting, we open to the public. Budget makers will present. We'll have an open question period. The public will have an open question and comment period. And then we'll make our formal votes of our recommendations on each item and each article. So the budget itself is one of the articles out of the 60. If you have a chance, if you have the predisposition to want to experience one beforehand, go to Zoom and watch last year's.
Days worth.
2 days. It's fun.
We had a big item last year, turf fees.
Yeah.
I think they all have.
And there were a lot of articles. And
This
there's
will be 3-4 hours easy, just will be done.
Yeah. Any other questions on numbers?
Can you circulate the new numbers with the change in items, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all the work done by Jeremy and his team, Deb and Pam. This is it's a little bit like, it's like herding cats. It's getting a lot of spreadsheets from a lot of people, and they work very hard at helping us through these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
On behalf of the committee, thank you. And to you and your team, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else on numbers? All right, any committee member reports? Anybody like to have the floor for an update at all?
I can.
Divya?
Okay. All right. Stephen, me, Laura, spoke with the Conservation Commission, along with Jeremy, last week, talking about the budgets, and then we had a follow-up with Board of Health too. We are very productive conversations both of them were, so we are hoping to have a follow-up before our scary Saturday. And hopefully, you know, we see some positive outcomes. So it's really all I can share. Anything else?
I think I mentioned earlier, I did go and look at the roof for the high school. I believe, as we mentioned earlier, that the bids are coming in on Friday, I believe, this Friday. So we'll have more specific to that 900 plus for our portion of it. In my opinion, it's something that needs to be done. I could see the staining and that hallway is very hot. But they're going to go ahead and do flooring on their own and some ventilation. But where you're upstairs, I'd never been up there before, so I could. It was interesting. There were 12 to 14 people there for bidding to preview it all, and so that was during school vacation week, and that seems like it needs to be done. And then we met earlier this week with Rec Commission just to see where we're all at with numbers.
It's something about the library. So we met with Liz Anderson and Brian Crowley about a week ago and asked them to sharpen their pencils and find a place to cut. And they sent an email earlier today about a $6,000 reduction, which Jeremy said earlier was reflected in the budget tonight. I'm not sure if Liz and Brian have reviewed this with the library committee yet, but they get back to us on that. I'm not sure if they voted on that. or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet.
But I want to thank you for taking it to heart. Find a way to do it.
So I just want to, build upon what you said. And I just want to be clear that I don't think we asked for a specific cut.
Right.
We asked if they could help close the gap because at the time we spoke to them, we were still in a zero excess levy capacity and in a negative position. We didn't specify anything. We had a conversation. And we weren't asking anybody to eat into essential services or to have a service level of service that community wasn't accustomed to. So I just want to be clear on that.
Then they came back with a reduction that they felt comfortable with, which maintained current services. So I think that's where we are. So
Anything else by anybody? Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
the same.
We are adjourned. It is 8:36 p.m.
Moving.